dude, I am legitimately upset with you, Jeremy. Like, what the heck? Why are you promising the entire internet, Jeremy, that I'm going to eat a jar of jalapenos while I'm trying to host the show if we get 500 followers on Twitter? That's garbage, man.
If it makes you feel better, once we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube, I'm going to eat a Carolina Reaper. That's like the hottest pepper in the world.
Well, that's fine. Sign yourself up for stuff all day long. Just don't sign up me. Am I right, Kevin?
Well, you know what? I just came on to talk about like anime and games and stuff. I don't know why you're dragging me into this here, you know. And wait, now what about the ghost pepper though? If you're gonna do this, you know, do it right. You know,
Actually,
really.
the Reaper's hotter than the ghost pepper now.
Well, then you know what? Man up here and do something. And it's jalapeno.
Both,
thank
right?
you very much. But yeah, you know what? I by the way, when do we get paid for this little gig here? Is it after the show?
Yeah. So we're
wait. Hold on.
Sometimes the check gets delayed in the mail, so if it hasn't gotten there yet, just give it like another week, and you should.
Week. Okay. Wait. What's that light in the corner? What does that say up there? Is it
on
folks?
Air?
Oh,
I'm sorry, folks. We are live. I'm your host Dash V, and with me today I have a special guest who you've already heard a bit of, maybe, and hopefully not the embarrassing other stuff before that. But who else do I got with me today, guys? Come on, bail me out here.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Tyler.
go
Lizzie, go.
Well, what?
Lizzie's mesmerized by her sonic device.
I am, because I got the battery to work and it does this.
There we go.
Best thing ever.
Wow.
And I'm Kyle.
All right, and with us today, we also have Kevin. Kevin, tell us a bit more about yourself, what you do, and you know what we can be talking about today.
Well, my name is Kevin M. Connolly. I am an actor and voiceover artist. Most of my voiceover career has been in anime and video games and older shows like Full Metal Alchemist and Case Closed. I was on Sword Art Online a couple years ago. If you play League of Legends, you can hear me as Vladimir. And I guess we're talking about me talking for a living.
That's awesome. Now you also did an episode of One Piece, right?
Oh yes, a couple things with One Piece. There's a character I play called Pell, who he appears in a movie. He's a bodyguard of this princess. And then that was one of the strangest experiences, actually, because then there was an episode that basically was a short version of the movie, but it was all new animation. And so I had to go back in and kind of re-record because they had to add a couple of words here because it was different flaps and yada, yada, yada. But I wrote a couple episodes of One Piece back in the day, and I did what was called script prep for a lot of the writers. And let me tell you, that was a hell of a show to do. Script prep is where you, to help the writers out, I was the guy that had to watch the episode and list out every character and then the time code that they started talking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that the writer can focus on just the dialogue, because that is just so time consuming. So I'm sitting there with a remote, going frame by frame, looking for the time code when the mouth flap starts just to open, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, that's you don't want writers having to worry about that. So there's a lot of script prep people, and I was one of those. And I'll never forget, there was a two-parter with a bunch of chefs, and so it was just to name them was Chef A, Chef B, Chef C, but it kept going and going that I was having to screen capture on my computer to cut out the pictures of their faces so I could keep a running list and make sure that I didn't misname somebody. And I got up to like Chef, I don't know, like TT. I mean, I went through the alphabet almost twice.
Wow.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So, but that was definitely just a fun show overall to do. Yeah. That was my first writing experience was on that show.
Now it hasn't just been anime and movies though, right? You've done games as well.
Games like League of Legends. I've been in World of Warcraft. I've got I just came out with a PS4 game came out early this year called Altira Firis, kind of an anime inspired magical game. And done some online visual novels. I've been doing theater since I was in high school, and then I also do a lot of short films and some television as well. And that's kind of the life I get to lead.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I think Jeremy is mega excited about having you on the show for one game in particular that I heard we might be able to hear your voice in. Is this true, Jeremy? You go ahead and ask.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm a big One Piece fan, so when I heard you're doing a certain game and One Piece, I got excited. So, can you tell us about the recent game you worked on that I love?
Well, I think I could talk a little bit about it. I mean, there's a few
no spoilers,
trailers. No spoilers. All I'll say is this: it's a sequel. It's I'll word it like this: there's a particular game coming out next year called Ace Combat 7. And the trailers have been out online. It's a beautiful looking game. If I understand correctly, don't hold me to this, but what I understand is that for the PS4, it is going to be a VR flight simulator. So it's going to be just even super awesome, being able to fly around and look around you 360. And if you go listen to the trailers, you'll hear you might hear my voice somewhere embedded in there. And that's probably all I can really say. I don't want to lose my job, but let me tell you that I did get to spend a lot of time working in the booth on that particular game. I'm very excited about it. It was supposed to come out, I think, at the end of this year. What I understand, I think it was at E3 that they announced that to make it the absolute best, I'm sure with some programming and some graphic, all the designing and stuff, and especially the VR capability, one, they're moving it to all consoles, so it's not just PS4 exclusive anymore. It's going to be for the Xbox One and PC. I believe the exclusivity will be that it's the VR version will be for the PS4. So, but yeah, there's going to be some. I remember. I've talked to a couple of people about it, and they said, "Oh my God, I love that series. It's my favorite." I regret to say I have yet to play any of the earlier incarnations, so I'm looking to see if I can. I'm an Xbox One guy, so I don't know if I've got to go out and see if they have them.
Hey, you know what? That is okay, my friend. Like I pre-ordered my Xbox One X. I just want to make sure to throw that out there, and they're sold out, by the way. So everybody that said they're too expensive, nobody wants it, blah blah blah, they're sold out. So suck it.
So by the way, get PS2, get Ace Combat 04, 5, and 0. That's all you need to play.
Okay, I will make note of that, and definitely
you can come to my house and play if you want.
All right, I will do that. I'll come by and we'll have an Ace Combat day and get me acquainted, because it seemed like a really cool storyline. I think there's a I won't say anything more. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but it's going to be really exciting. I think it's going to be a really big hit. And especially, I'd love to check out the VR function of it, because I'm a big VR guy and 3D guy, so that should be a lot of fun, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jeremy, you have a follow-up question, I think?
I saw you done work for Funimation. What is it like dubbing anime?
Wow. Well, it's been an amazing journey. I started out at Funimation in 2004. Because I was literally, I do a panel about successful creativity, and my journey into anime was just completely weird and should never have happened, and it just happened to be at the right place at the right time. It's a fun process. It's a great process, and I'm really hoping to get back to it a lot more next year. Because what it is it's being able to bring these characters to life, but it's also very technical recording process, because you've got to act, and then you've got to watch the actual animation and match the flaps, and it took me a good couple of months. I had the directors at Funimation who I first worked with, like Mike McFarland and Chris Kazin and Colleen Klinkenbeard, super patient with me, because it was as an actor, it was great to get involved in that, but the technical side was something I had never experienced before. Listening to the beeps before you're supposed to talk, and deliver it just like that, but faster, slower, put a bigger pause here. For me, it's quite challenging, a great challenge, a fun challenge. But I've gotten to play a wide variety of characters that have been a lot of fun. It's interesting. At Funimation, I think I did a lot more kind of hero high school sidekick guys, and where I've worked mostly for Bang Zoom, I think I spent more time doing villains than anything else. I was in Nura as a villain. I'm Heathcliff in Sword Art Online as a villain. So it interesting transition, but it's always more fun to play the villain anyway. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I know.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. You know, it's you know, I'm sure every actor says, I hope to do more. You know, it's just like any acting career. It ebbs and flows. You know, so yeah, there we are.
So you by the way, your audio sounds fantastic. So you're chatting with us from your studio there?
I am, yeah. I built my own sound booth a couple of years ago. Most of my work, non-anime and non-video game, is I work for a children's audiobook company, and I've been with them for about 5 years now. I've probably done about 450 titles for them. We're talking, you know, I mean, it runs the gamut, though. I say that, but, you know, like you know, I get to say I worked for Reading Rainbow, which is freaking awesome. But and in fact, that was one of my best experiences because different publishers come to this company. It's an educational only company. These are audio things that are sold to schools to help kids with reading comprehension issues. So, and there's a computer system they hook up so they can read the picture or see the text, and they hear me talking all the stuff. So different publishers come to them, you know, and so there's an interesting addition to the audition process. So I'll do my audition of the book, but then they'll also give me sometimes what's called a pace sample or a pace test, just so that they can give me an idea of the pace that they want it read at. You know, because we do books from first grade up to 12th grade. So, you know, obviously for first as I grade, you know, you want a little slower speech pattern, you know, that kind of thing. Like I just did an audition for one where I literally was going, and then they went, you know, to try and keep it exciting, but talk that slow, right? So for Reading Rainbow, they sent me a couple of pace tests that, you know, because I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade books. And so one was a very nice lady, a great narrator, and, you know, listen to her sample. And then, of course, the second pace test that I have to try and mimic is none other than LeVar Burton. And I am a huge Star Trek fan, so that I kind of geeked out in my booth there. But anyway, no. So I had a little makeshift. I've got a little tiny apartment here in LA, and I had a little makeshift booth for a couple of years, you know, with blankets and a wooden frame and the Harlan Hogan Porta booth. If you want to Google that anytime, it's a pretty cool little system. But the downfall was that I had to turn off my air conditioner, and I had to unplug my fridge. And I'm 3 miles from the Van Nuys Airport. So
man.
about, you know, every other hour, I'll get the tires scraping my ceiling because I'm on the 2nd floor. So about 2012, I was very lucky, and I got invited to be a guest artist at my undergrad, where I went to go do The Tempest with the theater students. And I spent 3 months down there, and it was a very nice paycheck. And so I took that, and I had found these plans online to build your own sound booth with materials from Home Depot and Lowe's. So I spent a summer, about 2 months on weekends, and I built my own sound booth, and I love it.
That's awesome. Has that enabled you to do a lot more work from home?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd always done more. I mean, a lot of work from home, and like almost all my auditions now are done at home here in LA. You know, you don't go into the studio anymore. They just send you the audition notice in an email, and then you record it and email it back. But it has allowed me to do I'm very picky about my quality. And so this has allowed me to really up my quality that I can offer. It was when I built this that I started recording. I've done a couple of books that are now sold on Amazon for some authors there. And Amazon obviously has a very, very high technical quality requirement. So my old setup would not have allowed me to do that with this new setup, even though I still have to turn the AC off because I got a really loud AC. But I can leave the fridge plugged in because there were more than once I forgot to plug it back in overnight. So yeah,
I'm laughing because I've done that before. It's worse when you're like on a set somewhere and the set is like somebody's house that they've let you use.
Oh, yes, and, exactly.
You have to have the sticky note like right by the door, right on your car. You end up having dozens of sticky notes saying, "For God's sake, plug the fridge back in."
Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, so yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very proud of myself for building the darn thing, and yeah, it's allowed me to just be able to offer a higher quality of product. I've done some of the online stuff I've done, like I said, with the children's audiobooks. I've worked a number of times for a guy in Taiwan. So if you ever go to the Taiwan Museum of History and go around their indigenous people time, you're going to hear me narrating all your stuff about all the stuff, all the fossils and rocks and everything. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. And I think most actors now, especially out here in LA, either going to have a pre-built or have really spend some time building up their own booth in their own home or apartment.
Nice. Listeners Mate, one of our followers in the chat here. We have a live chat that goes on while the show is streaming. Listeners Mate asks, Kevin, did you know a guy named J.S. Gilbert who also did voice work for League of Legends?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I didn't meet anybody else who worked on the show. That's one of the kind of the big misconceptions, that we all get to work with each other, but we all record separately. The only person I know from that, it was Tony Oliver, who directed me, to be honest with you. And I got replaced. That sucked. So yeah. Well, I found everybody got replaced. I don't know if do you guys play League of Legends at all?
I used to a little bit. Yeah.
So I recorded the dialogue. It's this great cheesy dialogue. He's a vampire, right? It's stuff like, go ahead, be negative. You'll be just my type. And or the clot thickens. That kind of stuff.
That's horrible.
And then I remember it's terrible. It's terrible. I love it.
It's great. Yeah.
But about a year after I recorded it, I got an email from Bang Zoom saying, asking me my availability for a 2-week span, saying Vladimir's getting a new costume and they may be doing some new dialogue. Can you come in and are you available sometime this 2 weeks? I said, absolutely, sure, right? And then crickets. 6 months go by and I don't hear anything. And so then I'm putting my website together. I'm looking for YouTube clips, that I can push to my website of stuff I'm in. And I thought, well, I wonder if anybody's got some, if they recorded themselves. I was unaware of Twitch and recording yourselves and putting gaming up on YouTube at this time. And I thought, I wonder if anybody's got, Vladimir on there. So I went and I saw this whole list of things pop up that say the voice of Vladimir. And then it said, we've pulled the original audio right off the server. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. It may be illegal. I don't know, but it's kind of cool.
Right.
So I hit play on the big voice of Vladimir and I'm listening to it and I say, that's not me. It was the other guy who's got a great, deep, beautiful voice. I found out, actually, it's not me. It's not me. I'm a little higher in the range there, and I couldn't. For the dialogue he had, he really was perfect. I don't know who he is, but he. What I found out just actually last year is that, I think now this may or may not be right. This is just hearsay, so don't say Kevin Connolly said this is what you should have. But what I understand is that a new producer came in, and so when they were doing all the new costumes, they were making the dialogue more serious. And so they went ahead and got other actors for pretty much everybody. So
gotcha.
And that's a production thing. I mean, I replaced a guy on a show years ago for a short-lived company called Illumitoon on a show called Biddix. I ended up playing the brother of the lead character, and it was but they had cast somebody else who he apparently this person auditioned really well, but he just couldn't quite get it right in the booth, and that's happened to me. I wasn't replaced. Well, I was replaced, but I switched characters on a show because I really just couldn't connect with a particular. I was on Witchblade, and I really just was having trouble as an actor connecting with this particular character. I don't know why. I just could not quite get it right. I remember Chris Bevins was directing that. He called me and very generously said, "Look, I want to give you something else. I think that you're a better fit for," and he was right. He was absolutely right. He got it. It's got that's where you trust your directors and really picking the right people, and sometimes they got to switch you around. So
yeah, that's really cool, and it shows a lot of personal kind of strength to be able to kind of take that feedback and, like you said, to kind of like trust in the director, because you're leaving yourself vulnerable there, right? But
absolutely.
But when you see the payoff, it's worth its weight in gold.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that especially for younger actors can be very ego bruising, is to really you have to learn what you're good at and what you're not good at. Like I'll never be the movie trailer guy. I'll never have that deep voice.
That's one of my questions coming up.
Okay, and I'll never do, you know, on a regular basis, Sunday, you know. I mean, that's just not in my, that's just my throat already hurts just from doing that, you know.
Not in the cards.
But kids audiobooks, animation, younger characters, that's where my wheelhouse is, you know. And even I even narrow it down. I mean, I know, you know, one of the things that I do a panel on voiceover 101, and I go against the grain a little bit. Maybe I'm inspired by David Mamet, who likes pissing off theater people, where, you know, a lot of acting teachers will say you should be able to play any part, and I don't buy that. I mean, I equate that to telling an athlete in a sport that they should be able to play any sport, but I'm not going to see a linebacker doing synchronized swimming anytime soon. You know, that's just not going to, you know. So I think you find your strengths in what you can do, and then push on that. Is it something? Is it what you always like? Not necessarily. I mean, I may not always be necessarily ready to play the dad in a TV show, but you know what? If that's what I'm going to get booked as and earn me, you know, a nice paycheck, well, I'm going to figure that out. But I'll keep going to the gym to turn into the hot dad. That's what I'm working on. You mold what you can do, you know, and then you can you know, tweak it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. Lizzie, I think you have a question that's kind of along the lines of this. Do you want to throw that one out there?
Yeah. So how is voice acting? Well, how is voice acting for games different from voice acting for other things like anime and also for like audiobooks?
Okay, well, there's it's a combination of things. You know, at its core, the best piece of advice I ever got from a teacher, my acting teacher in undergrad, was that acting is acting is acting. What changes is the stage you're performing on. Now, generally speaking, what I think about that, you know, that changes from your theater stage to your camera stage, excuse me, to your microphone stage. Now, to go even finer into what you asked about, so and especially in today's, it was within the last, I'd say, 5 years, I took a great video game workshop with a gentleman whose name is escaping me at the moment, but he was an amazing actor and director. And video games, especially today, and as gamers may obviously know, or maybe just have subconsciously have not realized, video games really fall more in line with like acting for film. It's very cinematic. It's very, you know, can be very real based. Based in reality, you know, like, I mean, because now, you know, as an actor, a voice actor, you're going to have your video game demo, and then you're gonna have your animation demo, which is much more high energy. It's much more playful, especially, you know, a lot. I mean, a lot of anime shows that, from my experience, are, you know, the crazy high school shows with magic. You know, that requires a different approach to on top of the approach that in anime you're just telling a straight through story, where in video games you've got your cinematic cutscenes, but then you've got to have your gameplay to help push the story, you know. And so that's gonna you know, just even technically speaking, like when I did World of Warcraft in a recording session, you've got all your main dialogue that's pushing the story, but then you got to do all your reaction sounds. You know, I spent an hour and a half, you know, doing sounds like, okay, you're an orc getting a spear through the back. I was like, okay, great. Then, okay, now you're going to do an orc with a spear going through the back that's on fire. Okay, great. That's great. Now you're an orc with a spear that has acid, you know, so it just goes in. So you're just going on and on and on and on. Now, audiobooks, you know, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be doing audiobooks for kids for so long, yeah, I would have kind of laughed, you know. But with audiobooks, I really love audiobooks because you're doing multiple character work. You really have to create because this is just, it's just oral. It's, you know, there's no visual image to go with it. So the narrators, their goal is to not only, you know, tell the story, bring the characters to life, but also really help paint the pictures that the author has written in the text in the minds of the listeners. Theater of the mind is a phrase that I've heard a lot. So it's probably, voiceover wise, doing audiobooks is probably the most challenging work for me, because, you know, I have to spend time, you know, obviously reading the book, just tons of characters. Like the very first book, when I joined Book Buddy, is the name of the company. The very first book they gave me was a series of 5 little kind of young adult short novels, about 60 pages each. The first book, the 4 main characters are 4 high school girls, and I thought, how I'm a 36-year-old guy. How am I supposed to do 4 high school girls? And hi, I'm a girl. It's just not gonna. That's not gonna cut it.
That was pretty good. I'd buy it.
Well, oh, thank you very much. No, so I had to do research in how to approach me doing female characters, and then I've done I did a crime novel a couple of years ago that I really liked, but I had to do some accent work. I had to do an Irish character, which is pretty easy for me because I'm Irish and I've been there many years. But then I had to do pull out my proper British and do a Russian, which I'd never really studied a Russian accent before. An Australian one, and I was nervous about that because the author was Australian, so I knew I had to get that one perfect or I'd be screwed. But then too, like there's a great video, and I forget the name of the guy, and I'm so embarrassed because he's a great narrator, but he does a lot of the Star Wars books, and he does. There's a sample of him talking about how he picks his characters and his character voices, and that you have to come up with alien voices, and what do they sound like, or the most famous, I guess, narrator right now that I'm aware of would be Jim Dale, who did all the Harry Potter books. Who I think he won a Grammy Award for doing the audiobooks, and then he also won a Guinness he held a Guinness World Record for creating the most number of distinct character voices in one audiobook. So it's that audiobooks for me are an extremely challenging acting process compared to doing video games where you go in 4 hours you're done. Where you do an audiobook, you've got to read the whole book, you've got to come up with your character choices, and then 2, how do you approach each book? Like if I'm going to do a romance novel, it's going to be a little more sultry, like he walked up to her and said, "Here's some ice cream for you," compared to an action adventure where you're saying he came around the corner, he pulled the gun, he aimed, he squeezed the trigger, and you've got to find how to approach each style of book and each genre, So it's a great exercise, in skill and talent level, and then patience, because they can take a long time. I mean, the first full-length book I did had a listening time of 10 hours.
Wow!
So I spent about 2.5 months recording and editing that myself. So it's. Now, this is because I'm doing it on my own for Amazon. I mean, there are, there's still, publishers who have their own studios where an actor will go in, they'll do their job, and then they leave, and then there's an engineer who does all the cleaning up. But I do all of it on my own right now. So yeah. But
now, do you prefer doing it that way? I mean, it gives you a bit more control, right? Like you get to basically decide, like, ooh, that was the better take, or I like the pacing of this one better.
Absolutely, and that's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things I personally do struggle with, like when I first moved, so like when I was at Funimation, for example, whenever they held auditions, I don't know if the process is still the same. It's been about 9 years since I've been there. They'd say, we have auditions coming up, come in. So you get to the studio, open a book, and there's all the different main characters. You pick a couple that you think you can nail, and then you go in, you read, and the director gives you direction, and then you leave. Out here in LA, I did that a couple of times with Bang Zoom, but that has all now changed. And as I said earlier, now most agencies and casting directors expect the voice actors to be able to record at home. So one of the biggest challenges for me is talking about my strengths and weaknesses is self-direction. That's something I really had to learn, pretty quick. And even now, I feel like I'm only half successful half the time. But when it does come to the audiobooks, that I do have complete control. Now, let me take that back, actually, because what I do, the website that I do the audiobooks through for Amazon is called ACX, which is actually owned by Amazon. If you have an Amazon login, you have an ACX login. It's crazy. But the process is that you record a chapter and then you send it to the author, and then the author will give you notes and whatever. They may change it, but the first time, yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's times I'll be sitting in my booth and I'll do a take, and in my head, halfway through reading the line, I know it's wrong. So I'll just finish it just to get it out, but then I'll just repeat the line, and what I do for myself is I snap 3 times into the microphone so I can get a little wave marker, you know, 3 spikes. And that's like, oh, that's where I made my mistake. I'll just cut the little bit before it and I'll move on. So
that's awesome. I've done similar with video, where I do independent filmmaking from time to time. And usually what I'll do is I'll have 2 cameras going at different angles or different shots. Like one of them will be like a wide and maybe the other one will be a medium or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And but just, you know, offset enough to where I can cut from one to the other. So if the deal is I only do 3 takes, and then after that I take the best angle and the best take. And there's been times where, like, you know, I put together something that looks like, you know, like one continuous delivery of dialogue or whatever, or of a particular scene, but it's really like, you know, okay, this camera, then back to this camera because you know, I made a mistake, so I needed some way to bridge from the good end of the sentence to the good beginning of the sentence.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So those little tricks and techniques, but I love the power that you can have now at home.
Oh, sure. Oh,
with
it's
editing
amazing.
software and everything. You can build a whole studio in your apartment, and you can you know, have all the professional editing software and really do it and release it
instantaneously. Yeah. I'm like it's, you know, I'm looking into doing some more you know, film stuff myself. You know, as an actor out here now, that's the other big thing, is you kind of have to make your own noise these days. And so I'm looking at producing my own content, you know, and looking up at like Adobe Premiere and learning how to, I mean, you just do it right there on your computer and you're done, you know, and spit it up and you're ready.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now, my brother-in-law, for a while, he was an animator at EA Games.
Yeah.
And,
oh, nice.
Before that, he worked at another studio. They did like MTV video mods, where they would do basically 3D animations, but to like hit songs. Like, so they take the song like from Evanescence or whatever, but instead of it being like a live action music video, it'd be all like computer animation and everything.
Oh, cool.
But one of the things that I thought was really neat that he was saying is that with the games that they would do at EA, a lot of the times he worked on The Sims. And he said that a lot of times what would happen is they would record the audio first, and then they would animate to the audio, which is got to be, I don't know if you've dealt with that workflow before, and if you could if you could just give us some insights into how is that maybe better or worse or easier or harder than doing something like to the anime, where like literally like you have this amount of time, you have to match the mouth moves. Like is one of them, do you think, you know, easier or harder, or is it just different trade-offs?
You know, well, for me, and I say this because most of my animation career has been with anime. So I mean, I locked in on having to match picture. I have been working on a new cartoon. I can't say the title of it, but I just will say it's an American cartoon, so it hasn't been animated yet. So Justin, what you just said, it was a little easier working, not having to worry about am I matching flaps or anything, you know. But that's again only because this is a new experience for me even. So where, you know, I went in and recorded now, and I was by myself. What I'm looking forward to is that this is actually supposed to be a full cast recording, so it'll be all the actors together recording and, you know, feeding off of each other kind of thing, where in anime and video games you don't do that. It's just you and the director and the engineer, and that's it. But I just in that moment, it did feel a little easier not having to worry about, am I saying it fast enough or slow enough because I need to match picture, or is it just faster or slower because the director wants it a little faster, a little slower? So, you know, definitely a little stress taken off of that aspect.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Have you got stuck on like a sentence or a paragraph, and for the life of you, you just couldn't get it down? It just pissed you off?
Oh, sure. And what they'll do, and that's the beauty of this too. And actually, in a lot of my audiobooks, I'll do this. There's been times where I like the first half of one take and the second half of another take of the same sentence, and I'll just slice them together. So, you know, what happens a lot of the time is that if I get a section of a paragraph right, we'll just do what's called punching in, where they'll play me the bit that they liked, and then I'll just punch in the moment I need to start talking to continue that sentence. Though there was one time in a Case Closed movie where the character I play, Harley Hartwell, had this really long speech, and they're really just the way the animation was, there wasn't a way to cut it or where I could punch in. So I had to draw upon my, theater training and get my breath control, taking a huge deep breath and not be out of breath and just tear right through the paragraph. And I did it in one take after we finally figured out what we had to do. But boy, that was not fun. That was a little challenging, definitely.
Now, I saw quite a bit of theater experience there,
yes.
on your acting resume there. So I guess the question that I have, so you played the hell out of Midsummer's Night Dream.
Oh yeah, yes, it's one of my favorites.
That's awesome.
It just happened that way. I love Shakespeare. Shakespeare is one of my biggest loves, doing Midsummer has been because there are those actors who get to play the same part in different productions of the same show, where I got to play a different part every time, and that was really a fun journey. But yeah, no, theater, when people ask me, what type of acting, I mean, I love acting. That's just at the core of it. I'll act in anything. But with theater, for me, I'm just speaking for me, myself, and I, it's an absolutely different beast that I enjoy, I think, the most, because one, you get to have a journey with your other actors, and with rehearsal time. When I was at Funimation or even here in Bang Zoom, or I actually at Funimation more often than not, I had a very understanding boss for my day job who would, Funimation would call and say, "Hey, Kevin, can you be here tomorrow at 10?" And I'd look at my boss and he says, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." And I'd say, "Okay." And then they hang up. And I have no idea what I'm working on. I don't know what the show is. You just go in and then you've got a couple of minutes with the director. You watch a scene and you boom, 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 because, a lot of the shows at the time still are today. But at the time, we're being put on going to Cartoon Network. So we didn't have time to kind of, what's my character's motivation? You had to figure that out in your head really, really fast, like I had a terrible, if we have time, I'll tell the story about the case closed thing where I thought I was going to get fired.
We will make time. If we have to go over, we'll make time.
Okay. But with theater, for me, the journey of getting to rehearse with your fellow actors, to really, get into a script, and then again, the most magical element to me is getting to perform in front of an audience. You get immediate response, where it's great to get fan mail, from anime fans, I even up to last year, I was getting stuff for Full Metal Alchemist, which, is such a special place in my heart for that show. And that's really kind of where I got started. But when you're doing theater and the curtain opens at 8 o'clock and the lights come on, you just feel the energy and you get immediate response right then and there. Whatever the response is, if you
right,
laugh,
for good or for worse,
piss them off, whatever. If I got an emotional response of some kind, through the journey I go through as an actor on stage, there's nothing like that. There's absolutely nothing like that.
It's gotta be like a shot of adrenaline. I've never done like live. Well, that's not true, but nothing like theater. Like I've done like little improv, like talent show, kind of thing. But sure. I can only imagine like just that, and then just things like I've done projects with my son where like we play it in a theater or whatever, and it's not like it's like this huge like worldwide thing. It's like the local theaters doing like this indie night or something. So
sure,
and one of our things gets up there, but just to be sitting there with my son and to see people laughing when they're supposed to be laughing, right, and like cringing when they're supposed to be cringing or whatever, knowing like I did that, I caused that, or something that I worked on did that, caused that emotional reaction. It definitely feels awesome. So I can only imagine like the adrenaline shot it must be to like, no, you're like, it's not something that you baked a DVD and now you're showing it and you're sitting there watching it with the audience. Like you are there driving the audience.
You are there and you feel it. I mean,
that's gotta be amazing.
I'll tell you, I've done The Tempest twice now. I was the young lover many years ago. then I played Prospero, the old wizard, in 2012. But when I did, I'm blanking on his name. My gosh, I say I love Shakespeare. I can't remember the guy's name. But we toured. We were in Colorado Springs, and we actually did it with the Colorado Springs Symphony. It had incidental music playing behind the entire production, and it's a 3,000 seat theater. And we were packed the first night, and there's a little speech that this character does. And I went out there, and I mean, just to have that spotlight right on you, and even though it blinds you to that point where you almost can't see them, you still can see that outline, you know, and you can just feel that energy of the crowd at you. And yeah, that's what really drew me to acting.
Are you still doing theater now?
When I can, yeah. I took a little break this year. I've been doing Shakespeare for about 3 years every summer for 6 months at a rep theater here in LA. I did a couple little productions last year. My focus this year has been more on trying to get. I was sick for many months, so I was out of commission for about half the year. So I'm just getting back into things and really kind of getting the TV film stuff. I'm getting a new agent, and but I'm hoping to do some stuff next summer.
Wow!
I'm asking about traveling. I'd love to do like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. That would be amazing, I think. I'm about to become Equity, which is the Theater Actors Union, and I'd love to see if I can get to the Guthrie in Minnesota, which I think which is just, you know, one of the most historical theaters in the country that would be, I think, would be fantastic to perform in.
Wow.
So yeah, I will always, when I can, I will try to always do theater. I mean, the one, I mean, as much as I love that whole process, it is a very time consuming process. And here in LA, you know, when you're trying to push for all those auditions, you know, and I'm trying to do more conventions, anime conventions as well, which is on the weekends, and so I wouldn't be available for shows. But I try to read a play a month. You know, I mean, I've got a whole collection. I spent months. I used to live in Dallas, where Funimation is. There's a great store called Half Price Books, and every other week I'd go into the drama section, and if there was a play collection or a play I hadn't seen or heard of, you know, I'd pick it up, and so I try to read about a play a month just to kind of keep the theater flowing through me, you know.
Kyle claims I'm in the drama section every week, but I don't know what he means by that. I don't know what he's trying to.
That might be a different use of the word there. You know.
Tyler, I think you had a question that was along the lines of where we're currently at. Did you see it or no?
Yeah. So what's of all the things you've done, like, what's your favorite project, and what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Everything, of course. No. What am I most proud of? Okay, so there is one movie I did, and this was actually a Korean live action film dub that I did a few years ago for a movie called Masquerade, and it's a drama. It's a dramatic piece. The trailer is very misleading. I fear it looks like it's very action packed, but basically all the action scenes are just in the trailer. There's no other action scenes beside those. It's a historical drama that stars the guy who played Storm Shadow in the G.I. Joe movies. He's a huge Korean action star. This was his first dramatic turn, and he's just brilliant in it. And it's this historical piece about, it's very Prince and the Pauper type thing. This is a real Korean king who is whisked away to recover from an assassination attempt by being poisoned, and they find this I guess he's referred to as an illegal cabaret performer. He does these shows that mocks the king and his concubines and all this stuff. And they take him because he's played by this actor plays both parts. And so he's taken because he looks like the king to sit on the throne in place of the king who's off recovering. So I was cast to play both parts, to do the English dub for both parts. And, you know, for me, that was one of the it was one of the most challenging voice acting projects I've ever done, because we had to spend the first, 4 or 5 days recording just the king's dialogue, and then go back to get in the mindset of the cabaret performer and do all his dialogue. And there's one scene where they're together very briefly talking with each other, and that was very surreal for me. But one of the most challenging jobs, but that is a movie I'm extremely proud of for the work. Wendy Lee was the director on that, and she really pushed me I feel she really drew out a performance for me that I'd never expected I'd be able to do. And then theater wise, I would have to say, well, that's a tough one, actually. I would say The Tempest that I did at my undergrad, where I played Prospero. It was a great journey for me to, be in the college environment with all these great young students thinking, oh my gosh, did I look this young when I was here? This is ridiculous, But as an actor, as I've gotten older, into a part like this that I'd never played before, I on my own personal journey, I found some connections to this character and to his journey and his emotional world that I hadn't expected to find in myself. And so just for me, myself, and I, in growing as an actor, that performance in that time period is a very special time in my life and very important to me. And then anime wise, it would have to be a toss-up because I love Kane Fury from Full Metal Alchemist, and then Heathcliff from Sword Art Online I'm very proud of as well. So there we go. My long-winded answer. So you get me talking.
No, that is okay. That is okay.
You get me to start talking and I won't shut up. It's a problem.
My nickname on the show is Dash V, my friend.
Oh, okay.
If you know most programming languages, compilers, etc., they have a -V option, which stands for verbose. So
Okay.
I think people who are maybe tuning into the show a little bit late are just going like, "Whoa, what happened? Is the show under new management? How come -V's not talking?" But
I'll stop talking.
No, that is okay because they can see me every week. We only have you for this one, so
okay,
absolutely.
Sure. Cool.
And along those lines, I think Kyle has a question, and then I want to hear about this time you almost got fired after Kyle's question.
Wow. Sure. I have a couple questions, Chris.
Sure.
Go right ahead. Fire away. Fire away. But he has to answer, Kevin. You have to answer in the sultry voice.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay.
So, Kevin, since you are into especially stage theater, I was just wondering if you'd happen to have a chance to listen to Hamilton and what your thoughts are on it.
Hamilton, the show. No. Well, here's the thing, and I'm probably gonna get. Don't hate me, because I will say this: I've had to sing when I did children's theater a lot in San Antonio after college, where I had to sing. I've been trained to sing in grad school. I personally am not I don't lean toward musicals in general. I appreciate what the connections it has made to the world. More power to them. I've got a lot of my friends at my nerd gym who were getting all the tickets for the Pantages theater production. I mean, like $450, whatever. Me, you know what? I listened to the cast recording, fun stuff, but the musical arena is for me, myself, and I that's kind of one I don't lean toward myself. So
okay, just curious.
Yeah. Now I will say that I am intrigued. I haven't bought it yet. Actually, I don't know if it's available or not, but I did follow when they were doing Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, and I did want to hear the U2 soundtrack to that just to see what all the fuss was about. But that show had such horrible things happen to it that maybe it's just better that it's gone. Yeah.
So one of the other questions, well, it's technically two, but it'll segue into the other one.
Okay.
You mentioned that kind of talking about like typecasting a little bit, that there's certain characters you feel that you're inclined towards kind of acting out and playing.
Yeah.
When you're trying to like fill these characters out and really kind of get that sense of the character, is there like something in particular that you relate to them, or like a method that you go about trying to kind of make that personal connection so that you can act them out properly?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, and I forget who said this, but it's not so much that I'm trying to create a character. I'm trying to find this character in me, because it's always going to be me up on stage. So what I try to do is like what you just said, is that when I first read a play, I read it a couple of times, and then I try to understand in the moment what this character's journey is, both as a human being in a piece, and then also what their emotional journey is. And as I just try to read through that and let that kind of say, I try to be the audience to this play initially, if that makes sense, when I'm reading it, and then to see what is my emotional reaction to this journey, which may sometimes be completely opposite of what this character is going through. And then what connections from my own either experiences and then imagination that I feel, either parallel this character, or sometimes, characters may be completely opposite of me, if I'm playing a villain or something, that, or something that, or like playing Macbeth, where I had to, imagine I see this floating dagger before me, where, what do I find, talking about fear and I've never taken a life. I mean, but here this king has just watched his wife do this, and how do I, so taking the idea of fear for me in that moment, and what scares me, what terrifies me, what secrets do I have that terrify me that I don't want out, kind of thing, and so I'm just trying to delve into that, and it can change with every role.
Are you ever motivated by the fear that you're gonna have to eat a whole entire jar of jalapeno peppers while you're like reading an audiobook or something because some other friend put you up to it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much, that's a very rare acting technique, that you have to keep the jar of jalapenos next to you, to have that prepared, and that, every time that the character says a line, you have to eat half a jalapeno. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, no. So it's, it's really finding what their emotional and mental journey is, and how do I relate to that, or not relate to it, because again, some characters you get to work with are going to be just so out there, but my job is to take the journey with them, and how can I bring that out, even if it scares me, and that's the best. And that's something that I've started doing for myself is, I say, yes, I've been type, I know my type, but like, especially with short films, like a lot of student films, is now, just because I think there's more freedom in that, is that I have been applying or submitting myself for characters that I don't exactly fit, that kind of scare me, if that makes sense, because I do want to, I do as an actor, especially in the last couple of years. Again, I love Shakespeare, but I feel I have gotten a little stale, and that I need something kind of new to kind of kickstart, the creative juices again. Like, I just submitted to be a professor that attempts to rape one of his students. I've never done anything like that before.
Wow. That's a serious role.
It's a very, it's a very serious. It's a student film / PSA. Talking especially about college environments, and it talks about clearly in the description, this is what we're planning. We will work with a stunt coordinator to make sure everything is safe. We will talk with both the actress and whoever's, so all that there. But would I have submitted for that 2 years ago? No, absolutely not. But now it's something that's like, I've got to scare myself a little bit. I've got to find, because that is something that I can't just open up and say, oh, I relate to that guy. Of course I don't. But, how can I bring this truthfully to life? And does it scare me? Yes. And can I figure it out? Sure. I'm going to work with the director on that. So I hope that answers your question, I think. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a lot more that could be said on it and stuff, but of course we want to make sure we get to the story and everything too.
You can buy every acting book and find something that works for you. That's what I tell my students all the time. I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's not a medical field. You've got Stanislavski, you've got Uta Hagen, you got Meisner. You've got all these acting techniques that you find what works for you. And then enjoy the journey.
That is awesome. I think that's great advice. Whether it's acting or developing or whatever. I think there's a lot to be said for enjoy the journey, because I think sometimes we can see our challenges. We can see, like, with all the stuff going on in the world. I promise, guys, I'm not going to get political. We're not that kind of show. But
sure.
But I mean, just open up Facebook. Open up MSN or something like that, and and you know, any given day there's just all this stuff that could be like, oh my goodness, the world is horrible. But at the same time, there's all these opportunities for growth, all these opportunities for everything that challenges you and kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone. There's this opportunity for you to say, wow, I never knew that I had it in me to be able to do this or to be able to overcome this.
And it's so funny you mentioned that, because
it's empowering after a while.
You know, as I said earlier, you know, I felt like as a creative person, especially because of some personal things in the last couple of years, I felt a definite diminishing of my creativity, and so, in fact, just today, this is so funny. I was sick for about 6 months last year, and I gained a lot of weight, and so I'm with a nutritionist now. And just this morning, we were talking about, you know, emotional connection to food and all this stuff. And she asked me, you know, she knows I'm an actor and a creative type, and she goes, do you give yourself creative time every day? And I said, well, you know, I mean, like I try to read a bit of my play every day and that kind of. She says, no. She goes, do you just sit do you just doodle? Do you just write anything that comes out of your head on a piece of paper? Do you strum a guitar or something? And I said, well, I have all that stuff. I just haven't done it. And so I've made a commitment to myself that 30 minutes every day I will pull out a drawing pad. I've been wanting to learn how to draw for years, and I'm just gonna start doodling, you know, to get to just to let that creative stuff, you know, you have to give yourself that time. And also it comes back to, we have to take care of it ourselves. You know, I was definitely in a rut where I was trying to ask other people, it's like, you know, I need a new voiceover agent. Can you recommend anybody? You know, kind of got, you know, the crickets. You know, I don't know where else to look for work. Can anybody, you know? And I said, screw this. I got to take care of it myself. You know, this is my creative life. You know, and I went online, and sure enough, I've been recording. I've got two online video games that are coming out. You know, your creativity is your own responsibility, and I think I forgot that. I don't know why I went on this tangent. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's definitely you know, appropriate. I'll take the blame for it. But I love that attitude, though. I love that attitude that, like, you know, yes, maybe we're not responsible for like things that happen to us or how like life. You could do everything right and still get handed like a total bad deck of cards, right?
Absolutely.
But it's how you respond to that, right, and how you kind of learn from that. Those can later on to become tools. Who knows? There could be a role that is coming out that the only way that you can relate to that role is by using something that you're like, my God, why'd this happen to me? But then
absolutely.
You know, a year later, like, wow, like still I don't enjoy that happened, but I can totally understand what this character would be going through, and then you nail the audition.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing is taking your own journey that you're going through in your creative life, you know, whether, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, on top of, I mean, you know, taking care of yourself, you know, like, you know, and for me, I've got no problem admitting that I didn't take care of myself for a good couple of years. That, you know, you take care of yourself, but then you can, that's ammunition that you can use. That's the inspiration you can use. That's the creative juices you can use, you know, because as artists, you know, it's such an emotional revelation that we share with all those around us that it can be scary and terrifying, but that's the batteries of why we keep doing this.
Excellent. So speaking of some of the stuff, did you want it? Were you talking a little tongue in cheek earlier? Or do you want to share the
okay.
The story? Well, we do have we are technically at time, so I want to be respectful of your time.
I'm
fine. If you want to share the story, I will happily go over time a bit for the story.
I'll do the quick version of it. Basically, what happened is that. So I got into anime again, very specifically. I was at the right place at the right time. I've been researching voiceover for about 3 years because a buddy of mine, a guy named Vic Trevino, if you have any older listeners, there's a show called Pee-wee's Playhouse, and he was Ricardo, the world's strongest man. He was the big muscle-bound Latino guy. He's one of my best friends. And in grad school, he mentioned that he did voiceover, and that's when I got interested in it. So when I graduated, I moved back to Texas, and I spent about 3 years researching voiceover work. And then this whole series of strange events happened, and I ended up being at a voiceover workshop where Mike McFarland, who's a big, you know, producer, actor, writer, director at Funimation, happened to also be at. And it was my first voiceover workshop ever. And he, we read copy and he brought me in. So the first show he had me do was Case Closed. And I'll never forget, a guy named Steve Jacobus is his name. And then about 2 weeks later, he calls me in to do like football player B or something. And so record the lines and says, hey, Kevin, I want you to audition for this Harley Hartwell guy. Like, okay. Now, I didn't know how the audition process normally worked. As I mentioned earlier, you get called in for an audition. There's a book, all the characters in it. You pick a couple and then you read and then you get some direction and then you leave. Well, he had me read the character, gave me some direction in the booth. We watched about 10 minutes of an episode with him in it. Had me read and then said, okay, let's go to this other booth and record to picture. Now, that was the difference. So I actually recorded in the voice we had just picked, which I'm just still auditioning with, to picture of Harley Hartwell. It was a trailer for an upcoming episode. And then that was it. 2 weeks later, I get called in and saying, yeah, Kevin, we need you, for like 6 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got something big, And so I go in and I meet with a different director named Chris Kazin. And he says, so, my first time meeting him, he said, you were picked. You're Harley Hartwell. I said, great. So I'm recording a two-parter with Chris Kazin over 2 days. And then, I go right back in to start recording another two-parter with Mike McFarland, also as Harley Hartwell. I didn't really remember the voice I had done because it had been a couple weeks. And what I should have done, what a good actor would have done, is say, hey, can you pull up my audition? I didn't do that. So I'm working with Chris Kazin, who's a great director, great actor, great writer. And we're kind of messing around, and we picked this voice. But in the back of my head, almost immediately, I'm thinking, this doesn't feel right. I kept saying, in my head, I kept saying, I don't think this is the voice I did. But Chris liked it. I said, okay, we're just going to go with it, So we record all day, this one episode, this first two-parter episode. And then I go in the next day, and we start recording again with Chris in this voice where it's still nagging me in the back of my. But I'm a new. This is my third time in. I'm too scared. I'm too scared to say anything. Again, I should have immediately asked to listen to my audition. And then I forget why this situation happened, but I'm in the booth. They're doing a technical thing, and then in the window, I can see Mike come in. And he's talking to Chris, and then look at me. They're making faces, yada, 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 whatever. Yeah. And Mike leaves, and then Chris says, let's take a 10-minute break. Mike needs to record one quick thing with you with Harley. I'm like, okay. I can't remember why this specific, but whatever. Right. So I go into the booth with Mike, and it's just like one line of dialogue. And I do the line of dialogue in the voice that I've been doing with Chris now for a day and a half. Mm-hmm. And the first thing Mike says is, Kevin, no, remember, he's younger. You got to bring the voice up higher. I'm like, oh, crap. That's what the problem was. The voice was too low. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So, okay, now we're Harley Hartwell. Great. Okay. Do the line. I go back and say, Chris, we got a problem. I said, remember how I told you I thought this didn't sound right or something was wrong? I said, Mike just had me do the voice higher, but I think that's what we did the audition, And I said, I'm sorry, I should have asked. And Chris was like, well, you know what? He was very gracious about it. He said, Kevin, he cast you, but I got you first. So I love what you're doing. I think we're on a good handle. We'll just have to adjust for Mike, and I'll talk to Mike about it. I said, okay. Okay. Wow. I said, we're okay. Yeah. So finish the day out. That was Tuesday. So Wednesday, I'm supposed to go in at 1:00 to start with Mike on the second two-parter with Harley. Yeah. Well, I get a call about 9:45 Tuesday night from the talent coordinator, Tara, and she says, Kevin, is there any way you could come in at 10 tomorrow? I mean, 9. I'm like, 9? I said, well, yeah, let me check my boss was like, we worked out with my boss. He was a very cool guy. And so I go in at 9. I go up, all happy, think I've got more work, I'm excited. I'm in anime now. Knock on Mike's door, and it's like a horror movie. It just like slowly opens with a creak. And I look and it's all dark and everything. I'm like, there's nobody there. So I go around the corner and I see Chris, and I say, "Chris, hey, do you know this Mike here? I'm supposed to start recording." And he says, "Kevin, actually, you're with me today." I said, "What?" He says, "When you auditioned, did you record to picture at all?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, after the audition, I went in and I recorded that little line for that trailer." He said, "What happened is that Mike decided to cast you in that moment. So when you recorded that trailer, it went out on a DVD already. So the engineers who were doing the first two-parter got the audio, then, you know, after Chris and I had finished it, saying this voice is wrong. It's different from the trailer."
Right.
So, you know, and keep in mind, guys, so because it was showing on Cartoon Network at the time. So, you know, all the engineers and the directors for the show are juggling so much information. And I just happened to slip through the cracks. I mean, again, I should have asked for that audition the moment I walked in, you know, and I didn't think to do that. So I mean, you know, but Chris was very, very cool about it and said, "Look, you know, you just slipped through the cracks." I mean, because again, they're spending so much time with so many actors and writers and trying to get it. Well, we had to get it recorded that day because it had to be FedEx to Cartoon Network the next day. So we now luckily we had recorded everything, so all the timing issues and all the script issues had been already fixed. So from 9 a.m. to about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, we literally I would listen to my performance and then repeat it in the higher voice. And all day, so to get it, and then I'm sure the mixers had to work all night to get it mixed in right, and then send it out. But I drove away that night thinking I will never work here again.
Wow.
Thankfully, these guys they were so patient with me. I have to give kudos to everyone at Funimation for being. I mean, they weren't only my directors; they were my teachers, and this whole process. You know, because there was really no class. I mean, even the voiceover classes I went to, they didn't talk about ADR because it's such a small, tiny niche.
Yeah, and each studio kind of does things, you know, differently or depending on, you know, anime versus games. I mean, there's a lot of differences just from studio to studio and how they do things. So, I mean, I think they focus more on the whole, like, how you do what you do, not necessarily like the logistics of like how that gets executed. But I think, you know, and the enjoying the journey, as you kind of mentioned before, you know, those are exactly like, if you're going to make a mistake like that, you want to make that on like your second or third job. You don't want to be like, you know, like, you come in, right? You got them to get you the bendy straws, right? Like everything is exactly like the way that you want.
Yeah, it's like, where are the green M&Ms? Where are my green M&Ms? Damn it, you know.
Right. And then
and again, like I said, you know, kudos to these guys who were, you know, dealing with so much in their schedules and we're able to work that out. And just on top of that, I'll do a quick story, then I'll shut up. I promise. No, it's about Full Metal Alchemist.
Go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead.
Brotherhood started after I'd moved to LA. So, you know, Fury, he doesn't talk a lot in that second series. You see him a lot, but he doesn't talk a lot. And there was really no reason, you know, because, you know, no studio will pay you to travel there. You know, you have to cover your own travel costs, of course. And it just wasn't financially feasible for me to fly all the way back to Dallas to do 11 lines and then fly back, you know. So I just figured, they'll just recast him. But Mike, again, was so awesome that he recorded the dialogue of Fury in the timing and inflection that he wanted to match picture. And then Bang Zoom were extremely generous and gave me a studio and an engineer for free to record those lines and then email them to Mike at Funimation, and I've got to be part of the show. So I just want to give kudos to everyone at Funimation. Always treated me amazingly while I was there. So great group of people. Worked very, very hard.
That's awesome. Now, folks, you know, you heard them. You're getting back on the horse. You're getting back into projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And you've got some projects that are already underway. But if folks want to contact you or take a look,
absolutely.
And everything, you're at www.kevinmmcconnolly.net, right?
That's the main website. If you just want to look at the voiceover stuff, it's the same website, but it just kind of locks in. It's 315studio.net. I've got all my samples and my demos up there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Kevin M. Connolly. and always up to chat with people. You can send me an emails or Twitter me, or if you're cool with if you're patient with an amateur gamer, I'm on Xbox One at Kevin with a Y, KEVYN Dark Moon. So yeah, find me on there and say I'm gonna kick your ass in this game. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, folks, we're gonna have links and all the links and everything that we just mentioned, and the contact info we put down on the doodly doo, so you can find it in the description. Those of you that are watching us on Roku, we appreciate it. So definitely enjoy us on Roku. Remember, the channel is free, so if you have a Roku TV or a Roku player, you can just search the channel store for Retro Reload, and it comes right up. So we'll have this episode on there in the next couple of days. But you know, you don't have to wait for that if you want to watch us on YouTube, Facebook, that kind of stuff. We're available now, so share the link.
And send me a link so I can put on my social media and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Share it like it's hot. So does anybody have any hot like a jalapeno pepper?
There you go. You are so screwed.
I am. You were supposed to be impartial. What's going on?
Oh, that's right.
Now you're on Jeremy's team. What's going on?
I'm not. I'm just making an observation.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna ban you from this. So
all right. Enjoy the journey. It's a life experience. In 10 years, you'll be able to draw from in a performance. It'll be perfect.
Oh man, Kevin, like you're the perfect amalgamation of everything I love. Like, you know, animation, games, movies, right? Acting. I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately, Tyler and other folks are gonna turn into pumpkins. Lizzie's actually in Texas right now, so she's joining us from Central Time Zone.
Yeah, definitely.
Does anybody have any final questions, or should I wrap up the show?
Thank you for coming on, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. I'll come back and talk more anytime.
Awesome. I hope I can see you at a con soon.
I hope so too. I you know what? I'll do the selfish thing real quick. If there's a convention you'd like to see me at, please write to them and you can send them my website. I'm gonna have my booking agent's email address up there soon, or send me a note at what convention you love to go to, and I'll reach out to them and see if I can come visit you guys.
Sweet.
Nice. That'd be awesome. All right. Anybody else?
Kevin, do you play any games on your Xbox One?
I do. Okay, real quick. Oh my gosh, this is like a 3-hour show. See, I tell you, you get me talking, I will not shut up. Okay, I will say that I'm a kind of point and shoot, going pew 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 kind of player. So, you know, if you're super serious, you know, be patient with me. I'm big on Star Trek Online. I have Destiny I like to throw down on some time and just run around into mountains and stuff. What else am I? Any kind of horror game I will play like nobody's business. And
have you played Alan Wake?
No, I haven't. Ooh, what's that?
Oh my God, my friend! I'll send you some links offline.
Send me links. Send me links.
If you buy Quantum Break for Xbox One, it comes with a digital copy of Alan Wake's American Nightmare. But what stinks is it's actually the sequel. It's a good game, but it's the sequel to Alan Wake, which you can buy. It's a 360 game, but it's backward compatible with the Xbox One, so you can go onto the Xbox Live store there, and you can pick up Alan Wake. It's a really excellent game. If you like Resident Evil type games, only with like a really good character-driven story narrative that's kind of episodic and like filmic and how it's executed, dude, you'd be all over this. You'd love it.
Oh yeah, I'm all over that. I love scaring myself. It's like I will admit it when I play the Alien game. No offense to our female listeners at all. This is in total power to us all. I scream like a girl when I play that game. I would hit that higher register and hide behind my couch, but I love it. Yeah. So yeah, if you find me on, I'll play any kind of game. I mean, I usually pull the ones from the membership for the gold, thingy. Yeah. But if you add me as a friend on Xbox One and you see a game that we share, send me a message. I'll get on there and you can kick my butt.
All righty. So he does game on his Xbox One.
Yes. Yes. I'm terrible, but I love it.
He's not just watching Blu-rays, folks.
No. So I do have a big collection of Blu-rays and 3D movies. I love 3D. So
awesome. Jeremy, anything left?
Just thank you for coming on the show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Honored. Anytime. I'd love to come back.
All right, Kyle, looked like you had something else.
Oh, I was just going to ask him if he had a laser disc player then.
Haven't gone old school that way, I'll tell you, because I mean, I think if you still, I'm a big, okay, I'll say I love Star Trek. I like Star Wars a lot. There's the balance of how that works right there. But I'll tell you, if I could find the laserdisc of the original theatrical release of the Star Wars trilogy, I'd be so throwing down some cash for a laserdisc player.
I know just got rid of a laserdisc player last week. We got rid of it.
Interesting bit of trivia.
Oh my god!
Interesting bit of trivia.
That I would give it to you.
It just makes you feel any better, Kevin. The DVD re-release of the original 3, like the last 6, 7, 8, or I think that was right. But anyway, the last 3, which is actually the first 3, you know what I'm talking about,
right?
They lost the masters for those when they upconverted them to. They had multiple copies, but some copies were lost in a fire, and then there were the other copies. They actually, the technique that they used to convert them over for DVD and Blu-ray when they were making the theater re-release versions actually destroyed the original film footage. So there was literally none. So when fans were complaining that all they could get on DVD and Blu-ray were these like remastered versions with the new graphics,
special
and
editions.
Han Solo doesn't shoot first anymore or whatever. They wanted to give fans what they were asking for, like give us the original theatrical cut, please.
Yeah.
They didn't have masters to go back to, so they actually used up conversions of the laser disc masters.
Oh my gosh.
So if you have the original theatrical release DVDs of those, which were like a limited edition, that's actually an upconvert from Laserdisc. So if you've got those DVDs, you've got the Laserdisc, my friend.
That's pretty wild. I gotta remember that.
So Tyler, anything?
He's tired.
Nope.
Dead.
I got nothing.
He's going to sleep.
So
good Lord.
Kevin, thank you so much. Folks, remember all the contact info we'll have down on the doodly-doo. Check us out next Tuesday. And then any last words, Kevin?
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So, folks, check us out next Tuesday.